Of 1.8 million dreamers. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has rejected that White House offer. The Democrats want to use this as a political issue.
This is about fixing the immigration problems across the board.
The White House now responding after nearly 100 people are killed and dozens more wounded in a terror attack in Afghanistan. President Trump saying in part, quote, the Taliban's cruelty will not prevail.
A clash between the White House and the Justice Department on whether a classified House memo should be made public. Devin Nunes alleges the FBI abused its power to spy on the Trump campaign.
That memo's coming out, Judge, and when it does, it's going to answer a lot of the questions that you and your viewers have had. Once that is public, then I think we have the ability to really press for people to be held accountable.
You know, tricky camera work will not show you things that you're going to see later. That's a tease that they teach us in the TV business. There's some pretty cool stuff downstairs we can't tell you about right now, so stick around on the show and you'll find out.
Hey, good morning.
Fox and Friends.
Good morning, Pete. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Rachel.
Great to have you.
We're going back to the 80s. I'm so excited. I'm like exploding with excitement because we have some 80s video games. We have 80s gorgeous earrings by Rachel and even
80s
silver
shoes.
80s shoes.
My shoes.
She preemptively
shoes.
said that. I walked up the stairs and you said it's my homage to the 80s.
I know, because he's so young, he doesn't really know what I'm talking about.
I lived in the 80s, too.
Yeah, but you were a little toddler.
We're the same.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough,
yeah, so next time let's bring in some Madonna music or something like.
I think 80s. We can get. I think we've got that
some
in the
80s
queue
stuff.
somewhere.
Yeah, right.
So.
Okay.
interestingly enough, there's a lot of news, and of course, immigration at the top of it. Since we talked about it so much yesterday, the president tweeting. Let's put those tweets up now. The first one from the president: I have offered DACA a wonderful deal, including a doubling in the number of recipients and a 12-year path to citizenship for two reasons. One, because the Republicans want to fix a long-time terrible problem, and two, to show that Democrats do not want to solve DACA, only use it. That a point we made a lot. And then just the other one to sort of set us up here. The second tweet, he came again. Democrats are not interested in border safety and security or in the funding and rebuilding of our military. They are only interested in obstruction.
So those are two tweets that came last night around 11 o'clock, and they came after the Democrats reacted to the initial plan from the White House. So the White House puts out the initial framework. A very generous one, which we'll talk a little bit about on the program, as we did yesterday.
Yes.
But in response to that generous approach, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, big Democratic groups, all, you know, throwing out words. Racist. What were the other ransom notes?
Yeah. Racist ransom notes goes together.
Making America white again by bringing in almost 3 million more
so those
Hispanics
tweets point,
and blacks.
Exactly. Those, good point. Just details.
Yeah.
Those tweets point out from the president, they have one of two choices. Either not one of two choices. It's meant to do two things. Republicans want to fix the system.
Right.
And Democrats want to obstruct, which they've done time and time again. Here's this sweetheart deal. It's a great deal. It's what you wanted, but you still don't like it.
Well, and it's not so liberals aren't happy with it, but there are also conservatives that aren't happy with this deal. And White House Press Secretary Raj Shah, I believe,
Deputy
White House Secretary Raj Shah came on to kind of pacify some of the conservative concerns over this plan. Let's see what he has to say.
I think the president is showing leadership. The president has always said that he wanted a responsible outcome for the DACA population. It's a pathway that involves 10 to 12 years. They have to engage in the system. They cannot commit crimes. They cannot. They have to pay back taxes. We're going to end extended family chain migration across the board for all new entrants into this country. The president ran on fixing this problem once and for all. If this proposal becomes law, we're going to get a southern border wall. We're going to have thousands of more agents on the southern border. We're going to stop the flow of illegal immigrants and the flow of illegal drugs. And for that, in exchange for that, giving a pathway to citizenship for people that came here as minors, we think is a fair and reasonable compromise.
So there, Raj is laying out the intention of the legislative framework that we're going to get tomorrow morning. But here's the point. Democrats don't even want to come to the table. They don't even want to. This is Raj is explaining the opening bid, and conservatives, rightfully, because of what they believe the president talked about in the campaign trail, president now trying to govern, not campaign, is saying, here's the deal. But the Democrats not even willing to come to the table, and that is going to be an interesting case that Democrat leaders make to their caucus and to Democratic voters come the midterms, that when the president put a path to citizenship for every single dreamer in this country, they walked away.
Democrats want all or nothing. They want all or nothing. So they don't want a deal. They want give us the dreamers and nothing else.
That's right.
The president recognizes, Republicans recognize, I'm a conservative, don't love everything about this initial proposal, but I also recognize it's a give and take. You're going to have to give something to get something. It just seems like 1.8 million and a pathway to citizenship is a big giveaway. It's amnesty for twice as many people as originally thought. It's not what was promised on the campaign trail. But if that's part of the deal, I will say this, then conservatives need to be reassured, and that's what Raj Shah was trying to talk about. Sequencing matters. When things happen matters. Triggers. Do we do something where the wall gets built first, or chain migration ends first, then pathways start to citizenship? Because we've been hoodwinked so many times where the process for amnesty happens immediately, and then all that border stuff happens later on. So I think a lot of conservatives could be reassured by the timing. Also, what Raj said, one strike, you're out. You know, you commit a crime, you do something wrong, you're a so-called dreamer, and you want to become a citizen, you better do it right. And the wall has to be built. I think that's something.
I think under any other president, I would have the same concerns you have, because you're right. Conservatives have been hoodwinked in the past. I believe this president is determined to build this wall. And I also think that the other measures he's put in place, ending the lottery system, ending chain migration, this is a president who's putting a plan together that's not only generous, but that's going to solve the problem once and for all and get it off the table, which is why I think Democrats don't like this plan. And because I think they love having immigration to run on. They love the racial components. They love the way they can beat Republicans over a club with it.
I think that's a good point. Final point. I think support for conservatives should hinge on the final product. What has Donald Trump done that hasn't yet delivered on campaign promise? This is an opening bid, reserve judgment to see what ultimately comes out of Congress. That's what's going to matter.
Well, and you know, Rachel, you had the best point, I think, of the day yesterday when you said what the president says at the State of the Union to those dreamers that are in that audience. What he says at the State of the Union is very, very important, and that is where this argument and this discussion is probably going to move based on what he has to say. And that's not the only thing he's going to talk about in the State of the Union. It's not going to be entirely immigration. It's also going to involve infrastructure. The tone, we're told, will be one of unifying at a time when, we'll point out later, as the New York Times points out, a very pessimistic view. But we've got jobs in the economy, infrastructure, immigration, trade. An important point there, as well as national security, trade. He's going to come to the State of the Union and make many of the same arguments that he made to European leaders and European CEOs when he was in Davos.
Well, and by the way, I just want to mention, one of the topics he is going to talk about is infrastructure. There used to be a time when Democrats really cared about infrastructure jobs and the blue-collar, oftentimes union jobs that were created by it. The wall is a huge infrastructure project. So they're not just, by not accepting the deal, they're not just rejecting the opportunity for citizenship for DACA, they're also turning down lots of blue-collar jobs they used to be for. So I just wanted to say that.
Speech coming on Tuesday night, and, a lot of important stuff.
And as I go back to report from Washington, the other thing I'm going to be talking about is the memo, a Washington Post article today pointing out that the president actually wants transparency. He wants the memo.
You're talking about the memos that are coming out from Devin Nunes, the Senate Intelligence Committee.
Correct.
That could point out that these FISA warrants were used to surveil the Trump campaign and others. There's names named in there. It's a 4-page memo. It's highly classified right now. But Devin Nunes and others have said, hashtag release that memo. And it looks like the president will authorize that.
But the Department of Justice says, not so fast. We don't want it. Sent a letter. The Assistant Attorney General sent a letter to the House Intelligence Committee saying this would be reckless for the American people to see it. We don't want. We need to see this first. But the president says, no, the American people want to see it. They have a right to see it. And he's calling on Congress to make it available to them. We expect that to come later this week.
So, and a lot of people are very curious. What's in this memo? There's a lot of mystery around it. As you know, my husband has seen the memo. He's a member of Congress. Hasn't told me anything about it. I don't know what's in it. But Representative Ron DeSantis actually has something to say about what we can expect to see or think about after the memo was released, and we expect it to be released next week.
That memo's coming out, Judge, and when it does, it's going to answer a lot of the questions that you and your viewers have had about how did this Steele dossier come into the possession of the FBI?
Okay.
Did the FBI use it to get FISA?
Let me
and
ask
then
you
once
this.
that is public, then I think we have the ability to really press for people to be held accountable. I think that once the memo's released, I think that there's going to be calls for a special counsel, 2 sessions from all these committee chairmen who are involved in it, and I think it's going to be hard for Sessions not to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a big move. If that is the outcome of it, that's huge. But it's further solidifying where both sides are on this. Republicans saying, hey, we've got surveillance. That's the big scandal. Yeah. Democrats going from collusion to obstruction. This memo will help clarify, the depths of a lot of this.
Right. And the corruption potentially at the top of the DOJ and the FBI, and you can't clean it up unless you see it.
And don't forget, at the end of the day, the president could call for anything to be released. He is the final say in all this. However, he's calling on Congress to do this, to give the transparency that the American people want.
Maybe Congress will do something.
I got to move on to some headlines for you. President Trump condemning the deadly car bombing in Afghanistan's capital, calling the terror attack despicable. The president tweeting, quote, Taliban targeted innocent Afghans, brave police in Kabul today. Our thoughts and prayers go to the victims and first responders. We will not allow the Taliban to win. An ambulance full of explosives was detonated on a crowded street, killing at least 103 people and wounding another 235. The deadly flu epidemic, forcing schools to close in at least 11 states as more kids and teachers become sick with the virus. Cleaning crews wiping down empty classrooms, hoping to stop the illness from spreading. The virus claiming the lives of 37 kids so far. It's so sad. This season, according to the CDC, adding it isn't showing signs of slowing down anytime soon. The Grammys holding counterterrorism training ahead of tonight's ceremony for the first time ever. Our Fox affiliate in New York reports high-profile artists took part in an all-day training session led by the U.S. State Department. The briefing instructing them on what to do specifically in the event of a terror attack. The move comes in light of recent attacks at concerts in Las Vegas, Manchester, and Paris. And those are your headlines.
Hopefully that's not based on specific intelligence.
I know, that's what I was thinking about, too.
Seems like a big step. I've never heard of it.
Well, there was no, actually, I watched the local affiliate last night, and they said that there was no specific threat, but that the environment, certainly with the attacks we've seen in New York, this is one of the things we have to deal with.
The world we live in.
Sign of the times.
All right, coming up, this is outrageous. A high school teacher and city councilman slams our military in the classroom. Listen.
They're not like high-level thinkers. They're not academic people. They're not intellectual people. They're the freaking lowest of our low.
The lowest of the low. Thank you, sir. The fallout from that disturbing rant coming up.
Plus, you know about the text from those anti-Trump FBI officials, but is the agency hiding more messages from former Director James Comey and Andrew McCabe? Remember, he was mentioned in those texts. That's coming up next.
They have not turned over any text messages. They said they gave us everything they're going to give us. We asked specifically for text messages. We represent a former FBI supervisory agent in this lawsuit. He knows what to ask for. And they told us essentially, you're not getting any text messages because they gave us everything they're going to give us.
Okay.
Where are Andrew McCabe's text messages? Where are James Comey's text messages?
The FBI under fire, accused of refusing to hand over key text messages as part of Judicial Watch lawsuit.
It's just the latest in a string of controversies as that bombshell FISA memo, allegedly detailing shocking surveillance abuse, could be released any day now. What does this all mean for the agency? Here to weigh in, former Deputy Assistant Director of the FBI's Counterterrorism Division, Terry Turchi. Terry, thank you very much for joining us and as well for your service to our country. I know this is a tough topic because it's a beloved institution for you, but it appears some at the top were not necessarily doing their job on the up and up. How much should the FBI be giving through a FOIA in this process? Should they be allowing text messages to be read so that we can get to the bottom of this?
Well, Pete, this is a really extraordinary situation. We're dealing with a president that's been accused of colluding with the Russians. And normally I would be like I always was in the FBI. I'd say, don't turn over a lot of things when you're having these kind of inquiries. But in this situation, this is pretty unique in our history. And I think that they ought to turn over everything they have. And I think we ought to have the public getting the facts. And the best reason to turn over this or to have this memo released from the House of Representatives is to start getting some of the facts out there, because I don't think we know everything that's going on at all, and I certainly think Americans want to know, do we have an ongoing problem, and did we have a problem with our president? And I think what's going to happen here is we're going to get this memo out, and eventually this kind of string of these two cases, which have already collided with one another, is going to just kind of explode on the scene, and we're going to find that this is something that nobody really predicted early on, and that is we're going to find that the other party, the Democratic Party, this is kind of the first shot in the resistance. I worked counterintelligence for 20 years, and I have to tell you something, and that was in New York and Washington, D.C., and San Francisco and Palo Alto. I arrested Russians for espionage with my partners, and I have to tell you, from day one, this has not looked like a Russian intelligence operation. It looks more like a Watergate-style political dirty tricks, only this time it's not the Republican Party, it's the Democrats. And I think they have to start getting in line and saying, look, whatever the facts are, whatever the truth is, people somewhere made mistakes. And so, and they were serious mistakes. They were violations of the law, probably. We all have to get together now for our country, and to move on, we have to find out the truth of what happened. The only way we're going to find that out is to get everything out there in the open. Right. We don't have the hearings like we had in Watergate. We need something to get out there and get started on this.
Right. We can't clean it up unless we see it. I completely agree with you. What has this done to the morale at the FBI?
Well, Rachel, you know, about a month ago out here, a couple of days before Christmas, they arrested a person who was getting ready to commit an atrocious terrorist attack on Fisherman's Wharf and Pier 39. I noticed the other day, I was reading some things, and just in 2016 and 2017 alone, over 40 local, state, and federal politicians were indicted on and convicted on corruption charges. My point being, the FBI is doing its job, and it will continue to do its job, whether it's organized crime or national security or political corruption, to try and keep our country safe. But you've got to know that every minute that goes by, people are thinking about this, and it weighs them down. And they're weighed down by not understanding why the rules that would have applied to them are not applying to the people running the FBI.
Double standards are the worst. Very briefly, sir, we only have a couple of seconds. Do you believe a special counsel would be required to actually get to the bottom? Could the FBI and DOJ investigate themselves, or does it have to be an outside entity? Briefly.
I think that it could go either way. I think the FBI and DOJ could investigate themselves, but I think they have to start showing that and turn over stuff like we've done before.
Absolutely. You don't turn it over, there's not going to be much trust established. Terry Turchi, thank you for your time and your service. Appreciate it. All right, back to the debate on immigration. The White House offering a path to citizenship for the Dreamers, but Nancy Pelosi says the plan, well, it's racist.
The president put forth a plan. That plan is a campaign to make America white again.
Wow. Do Democrats even want a deal on immigration? We'll debate that next.
Plus, Ruth Bader Ginsburg may sit on the Supreme Court bench, but she won't be sitting for the president's State of the Union. She slept through other ones. We'll bring you the details on this one next. Welcome back. A couple of quick headlines for you. Senator Marco Rubio flying from Florida to Washington to personally fire his chief of staff for improper conduct with subordinates. Rubio says the unspecified allegations against Clint Hill led to threats of withholding employment benefits. I believe that's Clinton himself. Hill served as Rubio's top Senate staffer since late 2016. And a new report suggesting harassment by a former Hillary Clinton aide continued long after initial allegations in 2008. BuzzFeed now reporting that Burns Strider, the man right here, was accused of unwanted touching while working for a pro-Clinton super PAC in 2015. The so-called faith guru kept his job in the 2008 campaign despite similar accusations then. Griff, over to you, man.
Thanks, Pete. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi has some choice words when it comes to the president's new immigration plan.
The president put forth a plan. That plan is a campaign to make America white again. They are changing the character of our country by what they are putting forth. They bring a tear to the eye of the Statue of Liberty, and they bring fear to the hearts of people who are here playing by the rules.
Now, the president's plan offers a path to citizenship for 1.8 million dreamers, but according to Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, that's just not enough. Here to debate it is Fox News contributor Richard Fowler and the Blaze host Lawrence Jones. Gentlemen, good morning. And now I want you to remember it's Sunday. So listen, we're going to put on our Sunday school manners, but this is an important debate. I want to start with you, Lawrence. When we hear Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi stifling even debate in the racist ransom note comments that have followed this legislative framework that comes out tomorrow, why should Democrats, even Republicans, even bother try to work with them?
They don't want a deal. And you know what? Quite frankly, if I'm the president, I'm saying, okay, fine. No deal then. Let's just take it all off the table. I mean, he's given them more than he promised his base. So that's one thing. But, Griff, I think this goes back to something because it's just not Nancy Pelosi. We have dreamers that are shutting down Walt Disney World and protest all over. I've never seen such a group of ungrateful people when you have the president of the United States going in. They called him racist before. Now he's going above and beyond, angering his base, giving them citizenship, meaning they would also have the right to vote, which is what Democrats really want.
That's right. Lawrence, look, these dreamers, 800,000 of them, have skin in the game. The president's plan offering double that number, even more than double. Richard, how do Democrat leaders make the case that they shouldn't even consider this?
Well, there's a couple things wrong with the president's framework. Number one, this framework can't pass the House of Representatives not because of Democrats, but because of his own Republicans. One of his famous publications that loves Donald Trump more than any other, Breitbart, called him Amnesty Don because of this deal. And only that, you have Congress people like Jim Jordan saying they wouldn't support it. So he has problems with the Republicans before he can even start dealing with the Democrats. But the fact that Democrats rejected this bill on face because it sort of sets up one group of immigrants versus another group of immigrants should tell everybody out there watching this morning that it's not about the votes for us. This is about the humanity of these dreamers and of the 11 million people here living in the shadows who want nothing more to achieve the American dream.
Listen, let me just
get in citizenship.
Go ahead.
What more do they want? They're getting citizenship.
Right. Let me just back up for 1 second, though, because Raj Shah, deputy spokesman of the White House, here is Raj weighing in on Pelosi's race baiting. Just listen to how this has affected him.
It is race baiting, and it's outrageous. I'll tell you this, I am the son of immigrants. My mother and father came here from India. They brought skills to this country. Wanting reform, wanting a secure border, wanting more agents to stop the flow of drugs and illegal immigrants is not extreme. It's certainly not racist. I'm personally offended by what Nancy Pelosi has to say there, but it's just rhetoric.
Son of immigrants, Richard, your reaction?
Well, I'm a son of immigrants, too. Both my parents from Jamaica, one's from Kingston, one's from Montego Bay. And the fact, I think what's more race-baiting than what Nancy Pelosi said is the fact that Donald Trump called countries like my parents' country S-hole country. Or he called the continent of Africa an S-hole. I mean, that is race-baiting, and it started with the President of the United States. But I go back to the facts on this. We don't even have to debate race. We could debate the fact that this immigration framework from the White House fails on face with Republicans, and that is why Breitbart is calling him Amnesty Don this morning.
Well,
Lawrence, let me give you the last word there.
This goes back to entitlement. The Democrats are willing to shut down the government for DACA. They're willing to go essentially called the president racist over DACA. But when it comes down to the American people, they're really not willing to roll up their sleeves and do what's best for the American people. And that goes back to border security.
Lawrence, I just don't understand why the Democrats...
I'm always offended when it comes to the Democratic Party, Griff, because simply black folks give them 90% of the vote. They've never shut down the government for issues impacting
I'm sorry.
us.
That's a good point.
I just don't understand why this is all about the Democrats when the Republicans are the ones who have a problem with Trump's base.
Richard, let me jump in there.
We
got to leave it there. Sunday school manners, I told you. Thanks for being here. And what I think is most important is going to be what the president says in the State of the Union to those dreamers in the audience. Lawrence, Richard, thank you very much, guys. Have a great Sunday.
Thanks, brother.
All right. Rapper Jay-Z, the latest celebrity.
The whole population of people. And you're so misinformed because these places have beautiful people. Now we have Donald Trump, the super buff.
And Jay-Z didn't stop there. We'll have reaction ahead. Plus, will President Trump save the date for the royal wedding? Did he get an invite? What they just said about the royal couple. You don't want to miss this. It's royal news. It's very important. There's Meghan Markle.
It's a run in our blood. That kind of luck's just ain't for us. We crave a different kind of buzz. Let me be your ruler.
Well, another network in this city proving that yet again they'll give a show to anyone, and that in that show they'll interview anyone. An interesting interview caught our eye. Jay-Z, you all know who Jay-Z is, well, he decided to take on President Trump when asked about the Trump presidency last night. Take a listen to what Jay-Z had to say about our president.
Everyone feels anger. But after the anger, it's really hurtful because you're looking down on a whole population of people. And you're so misinformed because these places have beautiful people. You don't take the trash out. You just keep spraying whatever over it to make it acceptable. And then, as those things grow, then you create a super bug. And then now we have Donald Trump, the super bug.
So this in reaction to Trump generally, but also the alleged comments in the Oval Office, the bleep hole country comments. And Rachel, what do you make of these?
I saw these comments and it made me so mad. I think African-American unemployment is down. So anybody who's African-American who wants a job can get one. He's making it easier to start businesses in America and give financial independence to black people. He's for school choice so that poor minorities can have the same opportunities as rich people. What the heck has Jay-Z ever done for the black family? Nothing. Donald Trump's doing more in 1 year in office than Jay-Z has ever done. What a joke. That's what I think.
Now, in fairness to Jay-Z, I'm sure he has all sorts of, charitable contributions, and he would defend himself. But here's the other point, and that is that in this environment where the president is trying to do things, whether it is to raise paychecks or whether it is to offer citizenship to children that were brought here illegally, comments like this, interviews like this, absolutely do zero to advance the cause of any of the issues that the president's trying to do. And he's putting it in this artistic, hip way. And so younger generations, the 20-year-olds, the 25-year-olds, see this and are influenced with negative perception of what the president's trying to do.
Let us know what you think. Friends at FoxNews.com. Do we talk enough about race in this country? Not enough about race? Jay-Z talked about that as well. I feel like we talk a lot about race in this country. Maybe it's time to pass some of that.
Yeah.
And look inward together as Americans.
Let's talk about green. Let's talk about money.
And your headlines.
Okay, and let's talk about headlines, too. The Mall of America stabbing suspect pledging his support to ISIS as he pleads guilty. Marhabi Rahman's attorney reading this chilling statement in court. I want the reason for my attack to be clear to this court and to the public so that you may understand that you will never be safe as long as your country is at war with Islam. The 20-year-old is accused of stabbing two shoppers in a Macy's dressing room in November at the Mall of America. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg now says she'll keep her seat on the nation's highest court for years to come, but she won't be sitting at President Trump's State of the Union address on Tuesday. That's because she has a prior commitment to speak at Roger Williams University in Rhode Island. Now, while Ginsburg has been critical of the president, it's not uncommon for Supreme Court justices to miss the State of the Union address. Antonin Scalia, Clarence Thomas, and Samuel Alito all skipping several of President Obama's addresses. It doesn't look like President Trump will be saving the date for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding. The president telling Piers Morgan he doesn't know if he's been invited yet. I don't think he should sit around and wait for that invitation. Despite the apparent royal snub, he said, quote, "I really want them to be happy. They look like a lovely couple." They do. Very diplomatic of him. There have been rumors that Prince Harry will invite former President Barack Obama. A high school teacher in California caught slamming our military. Gregory Salcido, who's also a city councilman, going as far as referring to military members as failed students who had no choice but to serve.
But the people who you know are over there, your freaking stupid Uncle Louie or whatever, they're dumb. They're not like high-level thinkers. They're not academic people. They're not intellectual people. They're the freaking lowest of our low.
The student who recorded Salcido's comment is the son and nephew of veterans and thought the rant was disrespectful. The school district is currently investigating.
I hope they're investigating. Yeah, in a high school. You know, it's so typical of the left, though. John Kerry, remember when he said the same thing? You better study, otherwise you might get stuck.
You might end up like Pete.
By the way, you know who got invited to the wedding? Adam Klotz.
That's not.
He's got the wedding and an invitation to
Invites
the
in the
wedding.
mail, Adam.
That's fake news right there.
That is.
Hashtag fake news. Here's what we're talking. All I'm here for is to talk about the forecast. 50 degrees in New York City this morning, but there's spots. Look at this. You don't typically see it. 50 in New York City, 40 down in Dallas. That's a big cold front stretching across the country. Anytime you see warm air and cold air pressed against each other like that, you're going to be seeing some pretty good rain showers. That's what we have across the entire eastern half of the country. If you're down in the southeast today, there are going to be rounds and rounds of heavy showers. That's going to be lingering all the way through your Sunday into your Monday before eventually clearing off on the backside of this system. Guys, the weather getting a little bit colder after that, and there's your forecast.
All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Adam.
Thank you.
All right. When they move the teleprompter, then I'll know what to say. Coming up this morning, that's how it works. Charlie, I could make something up, but it's better if we plan. Charlie Hurt, Sebastian Gorka, Anthony Scaramucci, Stuart Varney, and White House Senior Communications Advisor Mercedes Schlapp, all here live. Big show coming up.
Good show. As President Trump gets ready for his first State of the Union address on Tuesday, we'll look back at some of the most memorable moments from the past, like this one from the Gipper.